everybody. Welcome to the Sustainable Cleveland 2021 Virtual Summit. My name is Patty D. I am Sustainability Coordinator for the City of Cleveland Mayor's Office of Sustainability, coming to you live from the second floor of the Cleveland Public Library Meat Locker. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not, it's archives. Okay, sorry, my mistake. It's a little chilly in here. But I hope you've been having a wonderful time at this summit. We have had some amazing sessions today and yesterday. But we're going to wrap up kind of a three-part series with Chief of Sustainability, Jason Wood. He's going to talk about some of our dashboard factors. At any time, with any questions, please post them in the chat box on the right. To the right of the word chat is the word polls, and we have created some questions for you to answer at any time during this session. With that, I will turn it over to Jason Wood.
Thanks, Patty. So we'll skip the intro slides. I think we've been through them all, but thanks to Cleveland Public Library for helping us kind of facilitate this virtually. As Patty mentioned, this is kind of the third session in our series around Lead for Cities and measurement. Just by way of background, for those of you that don't know me, I'm a statistician by training. So I'm a big measurement guy. I like kind of having tangible things we can do to document progress. I think we're all better off when we can actually measure success and kind of have a way to kind of capture that the way that we do. So as we went through our Lead for Cities process, I think we kind of realized very quickly the volume of data that was required for us to collect and compile in that. And it kind of started us down this road of how do we start to think about data and kind of data management from a better, kind of more thoughtful, more forward-thinking approach. So we kind of started to look at all of the different places where we're collecting data. So we have our Sustainable Cleveland dashboard, which we'll take a look at here in a second, in case you haven't kind of looked at that in a while. We have the Lead for Cities. We started capturing all of these things. We got to about 126 or 127 different data points that we were measuring in some way before we gave up and stopped counting, right? And that doesn't include our CDP reporting that we do every year or our ACEEE reporting that we do every year, which are very big, large, kind of data intensive efforts. So what we wanted to do and what we want to have some conversation about here, and we want this to be a very interactive session, is to really start the conversation about how do we start to shift our data analysis and our data collection methods so that this dashboard, the Sustainable Cleveland dashboard, which will continue to exist in some form or another, is a better way to kind of capture what we're doing, benchmark where we want to get to, and then also kind of make sure we're holding ourselves accountable as we look to the future of what we need to be doing from a sustainability and from a climate action standpoint. So one of the things that I've dropped in the chat, I dropped a link to a Jamboard. So what I would love for somebody to do, and I think, Patty, you're going to try to share that Jamboard here. But if everybody else in here could click on that Jamboard, you should have the ability to edit and change things on there. I'd love for somebody to kind of click that link and test it out so we can see what's happening with that. So Patty, can you fire that up for us on the screen share here? So we've got OneNote in there. If somebody just wants to drop a test there to make sure I don't need to go in and change the permissions on that. So can somebody add a post-it? If you don't know how to do that, if you look at those bars on the left side there, you'll see one that looks a little bit like a post-it. Just click on that and just type in test. Oh, there we go. I'm not sure who that was, but thank you very much. So that is working. All right, so let's kind of step back a little bit, and I'll go ahead and share now our current dashboard, and we can kind of start to look at what that looks like from a sustainability standpoint. There we go. All right, is everybody kind of seeing the Sustainable Cleveland dashboard on their screen now?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. So when we first started down this road, we built this Sustainable Cleveland dashboard and really wanted to align it with some of the early iterations of the climate action plan and focused on our work. So we kind of grouped them by four major types of indicators. So we have a business indicator, which we're really using to look at things like green businesses and green jobs and the overall economic growth, and kind of are we starting to get into some of these quality of life indicators around median household income. We looked at kind of the personal and social, so looking at engagement, and then kind of measuring and tracking things around education. So looking at college readiness and FAFSA applications, and a whole host of things that aren't maybe necessarily directly sustainability related, but are definitely quality of life and certainly things we want to keep our eyes on. We looked at the built environment. So looking at kind of vacant land and green building and energy efficiency and access to green space. So I think if you sat through the discussion we just had with David Jerkin, Sean Terry, and Kristin Hall from our office around green space access. So tracking some of those things there to really kind of look at where we fall on this scale and what we look like. And then the natural environment. So really kind of focusing on water quality, air quality. We bring our renewable energy in here, greenhouse gas emissions, tree canopy. So all of these things that we've all kind of thought are particularly important over time, but really kind of really are a way to help us kind of think about what our data is. But I think the data management side of this area and kind of this space has evolved to the point where we need to reevaluate that. So that's what we want to have some conversations around today. So Patty mentioned that we have the poll questions up there. We'd love to kind of start for you guys to fill those in and kind of start to think a little bit about what we're going to do. And then Patty, if you can bring that Jamboard back up, I'd like to spend a little bit of time going through some questions. And then we'll show you some of the things we think that we've identified and kind of take some reaction and feedback to that. So just kind of looking at this now and really kind of focusing on what this looks like. So the first question is, when we think about the different focus areas, and we tend to define that as the focus areas of our climate action plan. So energy efficiency and green building, clean energy, sustainable transportation, clean water and vibrant green space, and then more local food, less waste. But I would encourage you to think more broadly than that. So which focus areas do you think that data could help impact behavior change among individuals? So as we start to think about capturing data, what should we be looking at to really kind of make sure that we're getting data points into this dashboard that can help drive change among individuals? So just go ahead and throw those up on Post-it notes. And as those populate, I may ask some of you to kind of chime in and explain kind of what we're looking at here. So, yep. So Patty just kind of demonstrated how to throw a Post-it on there. Any ideas are good ideas at this point. Yes, so I just got a comment, the dashboard link in the chat, we can absolutely post that. I will put that in here now while people fill in these things here. So we'll drop that in. There's the link to the dashboard in there for you. And then right now we're looking at this. Patty, can you make those a little bit bigger so I can... All right, so any kinds of point data that show what our neighbors are up to, since those types of data often drive behavior change, balance with the need for privacy. Yeah, so the social contagion effect, right? So what can we do to use data to highlight what our friends and our neighbors are doing? And it's a wonderful way to think about it. But what kind of, I'll push on that a little bit more. What kind of data do you think we should be focusing on it from a subject matter area? So social contagion data is a wonderful thing, but what should we be focusing on from a data or from a type of data standpoint? So I see one about waste. So with a focus on waste, data to resonance on how recycling is impacting our waste stream would be helpful. That's an excellent idea. And with our new opt-in recycling program, which we're getting ready to launch in about a month or so, we should be able to provide a little more data about that, what we're seeing in the waste stream, what the contamination looks like, the types of contamination. So that's a good one. Yes. Break down goals by neighborhood or initiative, i.e. how much is a program utilized in a formerly red line neighborhood? Would be great to see this for the tree canopy or energy efficiency. I think that's a great idea. Specific to the tree canopy, if you stick around for the next session, we'll be talking a little bit about how we've incorporated that data into our tree canopy work. Answer the what if to provide scale. What if I biked more? What if my zip code biked more? Okay, We see one about some electricity consumption provided by renewable resources. That's a great one to report on. Transportation, show mode split numbers. This is a great one. And this is one I'm not sure. I think we've got a little bit of data on mode split, but this is a big one in the Lead for Cities process. So if you sat through David Abel's presentation this morning, we do pretty well on transportation data, but mode split is definitely one that we want to make sure we're keeping our eyes on. It's a great question, great idea. Air quality data. So I guess maybe we'll get to this one a little bit later, but when we think about air quality data, start to think about what data sources we should be looking at. Are we looking at AQI? Are we looking at the median days for vulnerable populations? So we'll kind of get into those specifics here a little bit later. Vehicles, EV, ODOT has this data. You're right. EV data. Okay. So let's zoom. I think this is a good start. So let's zoom and broaden out a little bit. So this is we just got one more up there. Can we have data on impacts of new buildings? So example, Intro has parking lots, which is an impact building as it's designed so it's a level of energy efficiency. Yeah, so building data. Okay. Patty, let's hop over to the next question just to kind of keep moving through things here. So let's zoom out a little bit now, right? So that was kind of the individual aspect of it all. So keeping that same question in mind, what about businesses? So if you're coming from a business perspective or you're thinking about that from an organizational standpoint, what should we be focusing on and what data do we think could help impact behavior change among businesses and organizations? So let's get some ideas dropped in here. I just kind of scanned through the participants. So I know Cindy's in here. So Cindy from 2030 district should have some good ideas about building usage. And I know Chris from the 2030 district board is here as well. So some interesting perspectives among this group. So any ideas on data that can impact behavior change among businesses and organizations? Oh, there they come. All right. So okay, so where we're close to achieving the tipping point towards social health outcomes, tree cover, energy efficiency. That's an interesting one. Amount of food waste collected from certain business corridors. Okay, so a lot of food rescue and food waste issues there. That's good. Transportation connectivity score for businesses looking to relocate, how you walk, bike, transit score. Okay, so really looking at business location there. So as businesses are looking to make decisions, how easy is it for it to get? So when we start to think about that type of data, let's start to talk and think a little bit about the level of measurement. So at what point and what level can we measure it? Who drive that corridor versus some other? Okay. So transportation seems to be a pretty big theme through here. Other ideas about businesses and organizations. Businesses and organizations. Okay. So Patty, if you want to zip to the next one then. So let's think about community leaders, right? So which focus areas do you think that data could help impact behavior change among community leaders? So we've talked about people and businesses and organizations, but now those folks who in the community who help drive behavior and can help drive change, what types of data should we be focusing on for that group?
Cindy chimed in chat. Wider understanding of Cleveland 2030 district and their progress.
Oh, okay. I think that's a good one. Economic impact of positive change. Okay. Anand from our office chimed in with benchmarking. I think that one has come up a little bit in a couple of other places. So benchmarking is always a good one. So what do we got coming up here now? So I've heard reporting for data in 2030 district is not mandatory. Could we make it mandatory? I think that's one of the things we're going to have some conversation about moving forward. Comparison of these dashboard data points against peer cities and nearby neighborhoods. I think that's an interesting one. Let's put a pin in that one because we're going to come back to that question here in a minute. I think one of the things with Lead for Cities is you get the ability to look at some of that. And I think you heard some of that in David's presentation this morning. But I like this idea of peer city and nearby neighbors. But let's put a pin in that because I think we're going to spend some time on that here in a minute. Series of conversations about local pollution at the neighborhood level. Okay. So when we think about that, what kind of data would we need to organize those conversations at the local level? ESG, so different reporting structures. We have not to this point looked at all of the ESG reporting structures that are out there. I think that's something we can certainly take a look at. Ward neighborhood block compares to the city average and other nearby communities. So starting to get into some of the data disaggregation discussion. That's good. So different reporting structures, yes, that are relevant to the community. Okay. Microdata for neighborhoods and wards to know where efforts should be focused. That's one I like a lot. I like the idea of targeting interventions. I think it's a great way to do it. Anything else for community leaders? Oh, summary. How many modes of mobility are available in each neighborhood? Okay. Humanize the data to tell the story. Okay, so more humanization of data. So it's not just a data challenge. It's more about how we wrap the story around the data. That's always a good way to think about it. Okay, so not just about green space access, but can you get there via public transportation at the neighborhood level? Mandatory report. Okay, we got some good ones coming in here. Okay, there's an interesting one. Request top 3 priorities from SPN wards and deliver data that speaks to those priorities. What are community leaders doing to walk the talk? Okay. All right. Well, so let's do this then. Let's kind of put a pin in this for the time being. Patty, can you bring up the what we've identified as potential measurement ideas? So these are all really good ideas here. And what we're going to do now is bring up, so as we've kind of started to sort through and find those commonalities between the various different places we've reported, we've created kind of a preliminary list of things that we think we should be tracking. And they are very specific. So if you want to zoom in on this, Patty's going to make that full screen. So again, kind of grouping these by our 5 focus areas in our climate action plan. So energy efficiency and green building, clean energy, land use and clean water, transportation, and then less local food and less waste. So getting into some of those areas. These are preliminary ones that we thought are pretty valuable. And some of these we track, some of these we don't. But I wanted to kind of start to get some reaction from everybody here on the call with us today. So looking at energy efficiency and green building, continuing to track the number of LEED buildings that are built in the city, not just city-owned buildings, but all of them as well. Continuing to look at city facility energy performance. So this is something that we do internally at the Office of Sustainability, but really kind of focusing on how our building performance looks like. And then looking at 2030 districts, so how much square footage is in the 2030 district? What are they able to report? What types of savings in energy savings and water efficiency are they able to capture? When we look at clean energy, this is one we already track now, but I think somebody mentioned this is getting to the percent of our electricity that's coming from renewable sources. I think right now we're at about 13%, but we've got some goals to get to a much higher number than that. But then also looking at the number of facilities and the number of megawatts that are being generated from clean energy facilities. Looking through the land use and clean water park access, that gets to our 10-minute walk goal. So everybody within a 10-minute walk of a park. Daily water consumption. So looking at water efficiency, tree canopy has come up, brownfields, leak notices and closures. This is one that's a little bit different that we aren't necessarily looking at now, but we have the ability to kind of measure where we're seeing property leaks through the Cleveland Water's AMR system, and then monitoring how those leaks are being resolved. I think we've been able to do that for a few years, and I think you would be amazed to know how many leak notices have gone out through the Cleveland Water system as a result of that. But then looking at CSOs, so those are combined sewer overflows from the wastewater side, BUI, so the beneficial use impairments, and getting to that point where we're delisting the Cuyahoga River, but then also looking at urban heat island, and that one's a little trickier to measure. When we talk about the air quality, this one came up. Should we be looking at median days? Should we be looking at the AQI? What are we looking at here? Vehicle miles traveled. We talked about mode shift, bike access, and then public transit and quality of transit facilities. These come straight out of Lead for Cities. And then a lot of the waste things. So solid waste generated, solid waste diverted, but then we get into a lot of the local food issues. So I think we got some good comments coming in here. So we got, remember trying to find renewable energy data. It was hard to find specifics. I could only find one bar graph showing our percentage of renewable energy over time, but hard to track how much came from renewable energy credits versus a new facility. If it was from a new facility, wasn't sure how much or the cost. So if I'm interpreting the comment, and correct me if I'm wrong, you'd like to see more detail in that. So right now we're tracking at the utility level from Cleveland Public Power and from CEI, and then what we're able to secure through renewable energy credits through our community choice aggregation program and a few other places. That's kind of the level of disaggregation we have now. But if I'm interpreting your comment correctly, you would like to see it broken out more with a greater focus on, where it's coming from, not just how it's coming in. Okay, good. That's really, really helpful feedback. We can do some of that. I think it gets, that points to a larger challenge that we have in Ohio a little bit about where some of these clean energy sources are coming from, but we can certainly look to do that. So Cindy says that the 2030 district markets the leak detection program to members, and that's been a great tool. That's great. Any other kind of thoughts and feedback initially here before we jump back to the Jam board? All right, Patty, can you jump to the next page? Because I think we've got a few more things that we're looking to track and measure. So these are kind of the last things that we've looked at. So total per capita, the GDP in the sector space. So looking at our emissions, how much, how many per person, the decoupling issue, and then which kind of profile are they coming from? And then a whole host of population and demographics data. So this ties back to our Lead for Cities certification process. So looking at poverty, unemployment, graduation rate, some of these health outcomes, asthma, CO, or coronary disease, hypertension, obesity, some of the mental and physical health that we know is pretty important, but then also the community engagement, but then these other national rankings that we're looking at. So we track our CDP performance, we track our ACEEE performance, looking at the park score measure that TPL puts together. So Patty, let's jump back to the Jam board. And I think now that you've kind of seen where our thought process is, I think we want to spend a little bit of time kind of reacting to these things. And actually, if we don't jump back to the Jam board, maybe we can do it. Patty, can you turn on there's only 19 of us. Can you turn on people's ability to talk, Patty?
I believe so. If the attendees have a share audio and video button.
Okay. So let's go here, because I think maybe instead of doing this on the Jam board, and you can drop ideas on there if you'd like, let's go to, I think it's question 4, Patty, on here. But I'd love to kind of just hear what you're thinking as well.
And Cindy's joining the conversation.
Oh, there's Cindy. Thank you, Cindy. So this one kind of came up a minute ago. And which focus areas do you think it's most important to display progress compared to other cities? So Cindy, do you have an idea on this one that you want to share?
I mean, what I do is really focused on buildings. And so that's where my mind always goes. And since buildings are such a huge part of this, when you're talking about emissions, water use, transportation, I think that's a big one to display. And I think the more buildings we can get engaged and participating, whether they're a 2030 district member or not, if we can get them engaged in thinking about how they can reduce their carbon footprint, reduce their energy use, their water use, that's a big sector to tackle.
Okay.
And also, based on some of the other slides that you were pulling up, something that 2030 District has been trying to do that I'd love to collaborate with the city on is sort of overlaying those health benefits, right, to better air quality and so forth. How does that impact and overlay that over Cleveland 2030 District data?
Okay. So life expectancy, I think that's a good one. Whoever dropped life expectancy, do you want to hop on and kind of explain what you're thinking there and why you think that one's important? Oh, there it comes. I see Sandra coming in here.
Hi, sorry, that one was mine. And that comes from a graph that I show a lot, or a map rather, that I show of Cuyahoga County that shows median life expectancy differences by zip code. And it shows a 30-year difference within a 4-mile range from the east side of Cleveland to Shaker. So for me, it would be interesting. A lot of these health indicators kind of can be distilled into life expectancy. And just given the huge inequalities that we have, it'd be interesting to see that both within Cleveland and compared to other cities.
Okay. I honestly would have guessed the tree canopy was yours.
No.
Who dropped the tree canopy question? Because I think that's an interesting one. I think now that Sandra's on camera, she might be even better suited to answer that than I am. So when we look at that, Sandra, where did the 30% number come from?
It came from the Cleveland Tree Coalition and the members, and there was a lot of discussion around it. It's not necessarily, I think we were trying to strike some balance between a goal that was achievable and beneficial. And there was some disagreement among the members. Some people thought it should be 40%. Others thought 25 or 20% even were more realistic. We know that a lot of health benefits start to accrue at 30 to 40%.
There's another.
Hi.
Hi, welcome.
Hi, I was the one who dropped the tree canopy goal. I'm sorry, I'm just finishing up my lunch cooking while on this session. But it's good to know that background on the 30% goal because I didn't know that. And I've been to a few meetings where people were like, why 30%? That seems low to me. Shouldn't we be aiming for closer to like 90? Or people just didn't have a sense of like how much, whether 30% was ambitious or not ambitious.
No, I think it's a great point. And I think part of it is what's plannable, right? So what's available in that question too. So Patty, let's jump to the next question, because now I want to try to get some direct reactions to some of the things that we were just looking at. And if you want to throw your ideas on the board, or you just want to hop on and kind of chime in. So the next one I think we're looking at here is, what are some of the good public dashboards or some of the good sustainable climate action data that you guys see? From what other folks are doing in other places that you've come across, who's doing this well? What makes it good? What makes it a successful reporting tool? So what would you like us to kind of think about as here? So like I said, if you want to drop it on the Jamboard, or you just want to jump in, or you want to drop it in the chat, we can react to pretty much anything. So.
Chief, did you see the comment from Christopher Toddy?
I have not. I did not.
Okay, I'll read it to you. Adding in the cities and its businesses, resource management, and expanding recycling to be broader waste management. Sustainability could include business waste management and recycling to use someone's waste as another's resource. This would be managing natural and non-natural resources while helping our businesses and assisting economic development.
So
Thank
I
you,
think,
Christopher.
yeah, it's a good comment, Christopher. And I think, one of the things that we've got to think about, and this is going to come a little bit through our Circular Cleveland road mapping process is, and I think as we've talked to other cities who are doing circular economy solutions particularly well, one of the common things that we've heard is that the data measurement portion of it hasn't necessarily caught up. It's a fairly complex endeavor to do that material flow analysis that really is the underpinning of kind of how much is coming into the region and how much is going out in the various waste streams. So I think we've got some homework to do around that, but that's great. So more feedback. TPL's park score is one of the best ones I have seen. I agree with that. If you have not looked at the TPL park score data dashboard at the community level, it is fantastic. So I agree with that. It's also one of the most addictive things on their 10-minute walk where you start to draw parks and try to figure out how to build parks. So if you've got a couple hours to spend on doing it, feel free. It looks like Whitney's popping in here with an idea. Whitney?
Oh, hey, Jason.
Hi, Whitney. How are you?
Good. So this is interesting. I put NOAC up there just because we just finished our air quality plan panel, and I love the information that they collect, the way they share it, the way they involve the community. There's still a huge disconnect between the people who are unfamiliar with the terminology and the technical aspects of air quality. So I would just like to see more on the ground methods of relaying that information, if at all possible, because the data they collect is amazing and they put it up regularly.
So that's a great point. And so is NOACA an organization that you think is particularly good at kind of communicating it in a way that residents understand? Because part of the challenge a lot of times around data is communicating it in a way that's not jargony or technical. Are they good at it, Whitney? What do you think?
Are you asking if they're good at relaying the information in a layman's?
Yeah, it kind of making it accessible to citizens, right? Like we don't want to talk through data and put it over people's heads. So
I would say they're okay, only because they're an organization that is, up there. But I think it's also the responsibility of so many different organizations to jump in and connect with residents or other demographics that are not connected to companies like NOACA. So I work for a CDC, a Community Development Corporation, and I understand that data, the information, so I'm able to talk to the residents about it while we're working on addressing the air quality in Ohio City.
Okay, excellent. So somebody chimed in with CDP. I don't know if they want to jump on here and talk about CDP. I would not be surprised to see Anand from our office jump on to talk about CDP. He handles most of our CDP reporting. So anybody want to defend CDP before we move to the next question? Okay. So Patty, let's jump to the next one here. So we threw a big list of things at you, and it's probably not fair. And we can put that back up if you want to look at it again. But are we missing anything, right? So as we kind of started our list, what was missing? Is there a metric that you think really represents sustainability progress that we should be considering? So maybe it's not even missing it. It was on there. I just think it's great. But what really represents progress? How do we know we're moving towards being that green city on a blue lake that we want to be? And what are the data points we should be focused on to get us there? And I know this comment about jobs was on the previous one, but I think it applies here too. I think green jobs is something we should be kind of measuring in some way. So I think that's a good one to put in both places. Here comes Cindy. So Cindy, what do you think? What's the measure? If I said, and I guess let's think about it this way. If I said you can pick one sustainability measure, what is it?
I don't know if I could pick one. but I was just on the air quality session recently, and to know that American Lung Association lists us so poorly, I think that's huge. And so improvement in air quality, improvement in water quality, improvement in quality of life overall. If there's some way that we can tie maybe a group of these metrics to quality of life,
Okay.
and somehow correlate those, that would be great. And so the overall measurement, the overall speedometer thing is what's our quality of life here in Cleveland?
Okay. I like that. And that's one of those things we really liked as we did Lead for Cities, was it has that quality of life section to it. And it's not just kind of environmental quality, but it gets into everything because it's all interconnected. And I think I mentioned this yesterday or at some point, just from a mathematical standpoint, you can't get to that platinum certification without tangibly improving quality of life. And that's what we liked about that measurement system. I see somebody threw a comment in here about the clean energy report. Thank you for saying nice things about our clean energy report. It's something we're very proud of. But I think that this point here, so I don't know whose comment that is, if they'd like to jump in and talk about it from the breaking it down by equity and feasibility. No, we have not updated the dashboard to do that, but is that something we should do? I would think so. Anybody want to kind of talk about that comment, or?
That was me. I'm going to leave my camera off, but I really liked that report because I think it was one of the first I'd seen coming from a city that really incorporated equity related and feasibility, which is, I think, a common complaint around climate solutions a city can do is this feasible? Is it going to cost too much? But while those metrics were in there, I remember that report not having much details in terms of like how they came to calculating whether this was feasible or like specifics on that program. And I don't think, again, the dashboard was updated.
No.
So like, for example, I think one solution that got a check mark, like we're already implementing, is having energy home weatherization programs that are accessible. But I didn't know whether that check mark meant like, are we is there a map to go along with it to see which neighborhoods are utilizing it? And how can we like further incorporate equity into that data, right? Or do we just get a check mark for the program existing, but not its utilization?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question that we still have to sort through. And you're 100% correct that we have not updated the dashboard yet to incorporate those dimensions. But I think it's a good time to do that now through this discussion. I see a note on qualitative soft data. I'd love to hear more about that because we don't necessarily always think about qualitative data in dashboards. So I would love for whoever is chimed in with that to kind of hop on and tell me what they're thinking with that answer.
That was me again.
It's Wendy again. Okay.
Yeah. So community engagement and relationship building being the foundation of the work that I do, it's really important to hear what people have to say. So maybe there can be some sort of focus group, and by that I mean like extremely diverse, so that where the data isn't skewed, or maybe multiple focus groups in specific areas, and not focus groups, task force committees, something that's going on for a specified amount of time so that we can see those changes over the years.
Okay. I think we don't always think qualitative when we think dashboard. I think we immediately go numbers, and that's partly my quantitative bias from my former life. But climate action plan focus areas is a great one. Yeah, those were, as we went through the 126 things we were measuring, those were in there in some way. Green space that is protected from future development. That's interesting. Would the person who put that up like to jump on and kind of share what they were thinking there? I'd love to hear some more about that. Sandra.
It's me again. Sorry, I feel like this is a funny roulette. It's like, oh, it's me. It's something I've been thinking about for a while. Is not just it incorporates things like park score, but also there is a way to figure out how much green space we'll need to address urban heat island, stormwater management, pollinator habitat, recreational use, and if we could figure out how to sum that green space that we'll need for the future, and then we could start to make decisions about where and how much of that, of our vacant lots or other green space is held from future development. So making those decisions from the city down rather than kind of from the CDC or ward up.
Okay, I think that's an interesting idea. All right, so just in the interest of time, because we've only got about 15 minutes left, Patty, you want to jump to the next question? So this is one I think that we're very interested in, and we go, and I think we've already seen some of these things come in here, but we think about those traditional sustainability metrics around emissions and kind of green space access and trees. But what are some of the things that aren't traditionally considered sustainability metrics that we should include? What are some of the things we should be thinking about that's a little bit off the radar for us? Life expectancy is going to come back on here. I think that's a great one. What else, though? Okay, transparent budgeting. Okay, that makes some sense. Does GDP, education, jobs? Oh, here they come now. Pollution to education score. Tell me about this pollution to education score. Whoever that is, would you mind hopping on here and kind of tell me what you're thinking there?
It's me again. The pollution to education score comes around lead safe advocates who talked about how high lead pollution in schools actually hurts our education outlooks for children. But I think a similar thing could be said about asthma rates.
Okay. I think there's something to that. The number of people living in the city. Are we increasing? Oh, okay, so population growth. That's an interesting one. I don't know that that's one we're necessarily always tracking. City ranking of sustainability leadership. So that's an interesting one. Whoever kind of dropped that one in, what are you thinking there? If you don't mind jumping on and telling us what you're thinking there. Oh, here comes Chris. Toddy. Oh, there he is. So, Chris, was that yours? The city ranking of sustainability leadership?
Yeah. Hi, Jason. It was. So as we're competing against other cities for perception, I think we want to be perceived as leaders, and I think that goes beyond practicing our expertise. It sets up perception of the city and where it's headed.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's interesting. Education, graduation rate, ACT scores. So we're starting to look at some of that already. I know, Patty, I'll put you on the spot. I think you're around here somewhere. Lead for cities, we had to look at some of those, and you had to pull those down for lead for cities. What were the education metrics in lead for cities that we were looking at?
Oh, you got me there, Chief.
It was graduation rates, but it's graduation disaggregated by race and gender.
Right.
There was one of the readiness measures, I think, was in there. So we've got some of those, but that's good. Utility costs and shutoffs. That's an interesting one. Rate of urban sprawl and or shrinkage occurring in Cleveland. So would we limit it to Cleveland, or should we look regionally on that? I'm not sure who put that up, but if they want to jump in and kind of talk through that a little bit, I'd be curious to hear some more. The hours spent outdoors, that would be fantastic. We have to think about how to measure that, but that would be fantastic to collect information on that. Any other kind of outside the box, not traditional sustainability metrics we should be? Quality of housing. Quality of housing stock is a big one. Yeah, that's a great one. That's a really good one. Yeah, that's part of, we had to report on that as part of Lead for Cities. So that's, housing stock is critically important. So part of the built environment measures that we looked at there. Any other things you guys want to add on here that we should be thinking about? Crime. Yep. That's another good one. That's part of our Lead for Cities reporting. So we need to think about that. Population happiness, civic pride. Okay. These are all good. These are really good. Population. Yeah. Okay. So waste diversion, recycling, all that good stuff. Okay. Now we got the ideas flowing here. Okay. All right. So I think we've got one more slide up here to get through, one more question where we'd love some feedback from everybody here. Oh, or is that it? Was that it, Patty? Is that the last one? That must have been the last one.
That must be.
Okay. So
I encourage people to check out the poll questions as well in over by the chat box.
Oh, so we've got quotes. Oh, we got comments. We missed some comments. Parks and green spaces. Okay, that's good. Mary Ellen says the G&H index includes 9 domains, psychological well-being. That's a good one. I think we should have that. Mass transit ridership is always really good. So total waste generated per capita. Thanks, Kristin. That's a wonderful one. A lot of per capita measurement, I think, is interesting. As a measure of efficiency and that. Any other kind of big ideas? I don't want to take up any more of our time than we have to. I think we got through that pretty good, but any last things we should be thinking about? Anything we missed? Anything, what questions should we be asking ourselves? Green infrastructure. That's a good one, Whitney. Oh, there, are our college graduates leaving or staying in Cleveland or the greater Cleveland area? So brain drain is a good one. Inequality measurements. So yeah, so we're gonna try to build equity measurement into most of what we do in the dashboard. It's a pretty central tenet of our climate action plan. We're going to try to disaggregate our data as much as possible to see if we're able to uncover any inequities, and then as we measure progress over time to make sure we're doing it and kind of keeping that at the forefront of our consideration. So that's always a good thing. Any final thoughts? All right. Well, I want to thank everybody. Cost of living. Oh, cost of living is a good one, Cindy. That's a really good one. Some type of index measure of that would be great. All right. Well, I think we can go ahead and wrap this one up. Give everybody a few extra minutes back to kind of stretch their legs before the final session. So I want to thank everybody for doing this. I know this one's a little bit different than the other ones, and we tried to be a little more interactive and try to get a little more engagement going here. So I want to thank everybody for coming in and sharing what they can do. A couple of nice comments from Sandra and Whitney on the interaction. It's tough in these virtual environments sometimes, but I want to thank you guys for being here and for doing this. And as we kind of move forward in the dashboard process, we'll share this as we go. I think a little inside information. We're starting to rebuild the dashboard. At the same time, we're thinking about rebuilding sustainablecleveland.org and getting some of that functionality in there would be great. If you can, before you leave the session, go complete those poll questions. I think that would be great for us, information for us to have just to understand a little bit more about some of those things and what that structure of that data ought to look like. So again, thank you for participating in the summit generally, in this session in particular. We've got one more really exciting set of breakout groups